An enzyme can flit from one molecule to a companion molecule very quickly and do it in a way that provides exact compounds that the cell needs, do it very rapidly, and then exit and go on about its business.
Masterfully designed.
And so if these enzymes were not there at the beginning, the hypothetical first cell would have never actually formed. And so again, it points to a designer. Design always points to a designer.
Yes.
But where do enzymes come from? They come from enzymes.
Oh, isn't that nice?
And how do they know what to do? The DNA told me to do it. See, the DNA is coded information, and we always have confidence that instructions always are traceable to a mind of some kind.
Yes, and it all must be in place simultaneously, or it's not there at all.
And I'm sure the audience gets the point here. And even if we knew nothing of God, we could infer from this preponderance of evidence in one field of science that He is there, He's very wise, He's all-knowing, He's capable, He's loving, He has provided for His creation, and all those other facets of God, and what a great God we have.
Well taken.
Now, another piece of evidence I'd like for the jury to consider is from the field of animal husbandry or animal science.
All right.
And in the 2006 National Academy of Sciences proceedings has released an interesting statement. They say that several years' worth of research on mitochondrial DNA in goats and sheep show that all goats living today are from 5 ancient females.
Well,
okay. And they said all sheep living today are from 4 or 5, approximately the same number of ancient females. Now, is this important? Well, if we think about the true history book of the world, the Bible, it says there was a massive flood and Noah took 2 of many of the animals. But of the clean, he was to take 7 pairs. 7 male goats, 7 female, 7 male rams, 7 ewes, and so on. Then right after the flood, Noah made sacrifices of some of these clean animals. So if he had killed a couple of the goats and maybe about the same number of sheep, then we would expect that those that lived to propagate the goat population and the sheep population would be, 4 or 5, something like that.
Specific number. Isn't that marvelous?
They could have refuted, actually, the Scripture in a sense, if this had not come out the way it did, if they had traced it to 20 of them or something like
15.
that. But this small number of DNA lines of the goat and sheep caused Smithsonian evolutionists to say this suggests that sheep and goats move together as they do today. Now, I like what Dr. Charles Jackson says, what do you know? Evo research even confirms the New Testament red-letter words of Jesus, who referred to separation of the sheep and the goats.
Yes.
You see? And we knew this all along. Once again, it's the case of a Bible believer saying, well, we sort of already knew this.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Well done. And the jury, take note of what's being said.
Now, of course, my briar patch is a population I love to talk about.
Crunch the numbers.
We had some of this not too long ago, but which is correct, creation or evolution? Now, we have to go back only 4,500 years approximately to the time of the flood of Noah's day, because we know there's a big death event, if the Bible is an accurate history book, which we know it is.
Yes.
And so if you bring that forward at the rate of 2.5 children per family, you will get the present world population, which is about 6.5 billion people.
10 to the 9th.
Under 0.5% growth rate. On the other hand, depends on which book you open up. They're all over the map on how long humans have been around. I've seen as long as 1.1 million. Let's cut that in half, as Raven and Johnson's biology book does, at 500,000 years.
Cutting some slack for the evolutionary
Well, and this is their own claim, so we're just going to test it.
Yes.
They must never have crunched their numbers, because if they had, they would get this number of people, 2.45, but we'd have to move the decimal 990 places to the right, which is more people than there are electrons that could be packed into the known universe.
Professor, you have just blown evolution out of the courtroom and out of the courthouse.
Certainly their scenario there does not work. And here's what that number looks like, Dr. Ball, to actually show the audience. Now, we know the real world is this right here. If we wake up and smell the coffee, this is 6.5 billion written out.
Yes.
This is the evolutionary number that you would get using that data.
Absolutely impossible. In fact...
And this is truth.
And this is truth. I've heard it stated. And that's just 500,000 years, and according to the theory of evolution, Dawn Man and his girlfriend arrived about 2.5 million years ago. But let's cut some slack. And cut it down to the smallest number that they've given us for 500,000 years for the introduction of the human race. So we come to 2.5 times 10 to the 990th. I'm sure you realize there's not enough space in the universe, not only on planet Earth, not enough space in the universe for that many bodies.
Right. Each zero is 10 times the number that precedes it.
Yes.
And so you have multiplied by 10 many, many times here, and it's a mind-boggling number.
Oh, it's absolutely impossible.
Now,
so the preponderance of evidence so far that you've given us is solidly in the corner of creation.
Well, and it gets worse for them even. We don't know exactly what the human population growth curve looked like. We do have data, just data points right in here a little ways, and we can do what's called an exponential regression and come up with this equation, and this is a well-accepted equation in secular books, but I think this is probably pretty reasonable that, you know, there's 8 human beings, that's why we're so close to the zero line right here. Then rapid growth due to a pristine environment, no pollution, genetic vigor, numerous reasons, plenty of food and so forth. And then maybe it was somewhat sawtoothed in here, and then we saw exponential growth and somewhat sigmoidal. Actually, it's leveling off a little bit, it appears.
To our 6.5 billion.
To our 6.5 billion. But think of the problem the evolutionist has. If he has a beginning that is hundreds of feet back to the left, see, ours is right in here somewhere. His is hundreds of feet back to, why no upturn anywhere along the way, only in, you know, the 1800s and 1600s, 1800s, so forth.
So he's ignoring a palatable scientific investigation.
Well, it's a curve that you never see happen in nature.
Correct.
This is a curve you see in nature with growth of bacteria or rabbits or humans or whatever.
So the preponderance, the weight of evidence is still in the corner of creation.
Well, and these other
we have more to show this audience, and our professor is ready to demonstrate this to us.
Well, as early as January 11th, 1988, Newsweek magazine, in an article entitled The Search for Adam and Eve, they looked at mitochondrial DNA, which only comes through the mother's line. And they said, trained in molecular biology, these scientists, looked at an international assortment of genes and picked up a trail of DNA that led them to a single individual woman from whom we are all descended.
Wow.
Well, when I read that, I was reminded of Genesis 3:20.
Yes.
Adam called his wife's name Eve, for she was the mother of all living.
Yes.
And they actually called her Eve, too, but they didn't mean the biblical Eve, just the first woman.
Yes.
And so they call her mitochondrial Eve. Well, in '95, U.S. News and World Report reported that genetic Eve gets a genetic Adam. And a scholar in University of Arizona says we're finding that humans have very, very shallow genetic roots which go back very recently to one ancestor.
This is a bombshell in the courtroom.
Yeah, this is contradiction of what the expected testimony would have been, I think. And it says that indicates that there was an origin in a specific location on the globe, and then it spread out from there. Well, Genesis 9:19 says essentially that.
The earth was overspread.
Noah's sons are Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and from these the whole earth was populated.
Yes.
Well, then I got this from Dr. Jackson. The Wikipedia, hold the phone, says Adam, whoever the hypothetical first man was, lived sometime, they say, between 60,000 and 90,000 years ago. It also says mitochondrial Eve, the hypothetical first woman, was 30,000 years older than that. I guess he married an older woman. And then
she was the only one around for him.
Science Magazine says the mitochondrial clock method may be 20 times faster than previously thought.
All right.
So when you correct for the math, you take the 90,000 and divide by 20. That gives a maximum age of this man as 4,500 years. That's reminiscent of the time of the flood of Noah's day. And do the same for mitochondrial Eve. 90,000, they said 30,000 more, divide by 20, that puts her at 6,000.
Within the creation model?
So what they're saying is in the biblical time frame, what the secular scientists are reporting.
If we just ferret out the information and expose it to this jury, to this global audience, and that's what you're doing. This is the real information. So, this is what happened in the closet.
That's right. And in '98, calibrating the mitochondrial clock, Science Magazine said mitochondrial Eve lived a mere 6,000 years ago. So we've got 98, and then this is in '07 or sometime in that, and so forth.
This is a bombshell.
It's supporting evidence for the case that the Bible makes.
But it has been ignored by the opposition.
By and large.
And that's very unfortunate.
Truth to me is like corks in a swimming pool. You can hold them down only so long. And you can hold 2 corks down, but when you start getting 3 and 4 dozen, it's hard to keep them all down and suppress them. They keep popping up.